At what point then would you sort of make a clear distinction between anthropological forms of interest and more explicit academic or aesthetic kinds of interest in sort of your cited broader commercial photography? I mean, these sort of endless, continuous, spontaneous, almost mechanically and technologically driven generation of the same similar image in modestly newer descriptive guises, but along similar modes of typification, distribution, commercialization, etc., that all of these structures and institutions that sort of regiment and direct and pre-organize for the consumer of the image what those images mean, what they are supposed to signify, compared to, as you say, sort of a grossly lesser claim to some kind of artistic document. Because it's, I think that sort of what Mr. Wallace was trying to bring up is that there's a lot of images that are made out of a drive to simply produce, as you guys say, from an epistemically realistic point of view, a document of the world. And then there are these other images which are produced as merely commercial objects. And that there has to be some kind of distinction between anthropologically interesting and sort of aesthetically interesting in hindsight.
Well, I mean, I think if we were having this discussion in North Korea, where the regime of images is totalitarian, the kind of answer to the question would be different. But I actually don't see the image world we live in, for all of the dominance of spectacle, I don't see it as total. And it's not. I mean, what's interesting, if you transfer it to the realm of, let's say, highly commercialized film, cinema, every time a huge, big budget movie fails, it's such a beautiful flag waved for the fact that, money can't predict culture. It's such an amazing thing, that for all the resources that are poured into this, nothing can guarantee a success of a kind of $200 million movie. Likewise, something that's made for $50,000 can do extremely well and be very kind of culturally significant.
Or further to your point, even the commercial success or failure of any specific piece of art, discreetly a record or a painting or what have you, if it doesn't simply sell immediately, or is judged to be a poor work of art after the fact, once sort of brought to the public.
Well, if one was to say that what might define the commercial image narrowly is that it has no eye on posterity, well, I can tell you I meet a fair amount of aspiring photographic artists who take exactly that position. They want the bucks now. And they're not really interested in what that work might mean, after they're dead, particularly. Or no more or less so, But I would still maintain that there are, interesting people, very interesting people making very interesting work beyond art.
But that interest, and the reason that it's interest, isn't that out of an intention to make it interesting, is all I'm trying to say. The unreflexive wedding photographer who simply is this is a part of photographic practice, a very big part of it, and or the selfie producer, or et cetera, all of these images are produced for the explicit reason of being non-art, like they are, only in that realist document guise, and tokens of I'm here-ness that sort of aren't meant to mean anything beyond that.
It's interesting. 2 days. It's so interesting. It's always wedding photography, isn't it, that comes up as the most.
Well, it's definitely the most shit.
I agree. Yeah, I agree. 2 days ago, I was asked to run a photographic workshop in Madrid on a kind of master's program, and there was a guy there, Hugo. I have his card in my wallet if you want to contact him. Had been working as a commercial wedding photographer, but was actually making extraordinary pictures, and people liked these in their wedding albums because people actually don't turn off their brains as soon as they get married and want pictures of the day. And what he's doing is he laid out these pictures from 35 different weddings, and he wants to publish a book called 35 Weddings, and it will. And for ethical reasons, he only wants to use pictures that the clients accepted. But some of them look like Jeff Wall pictures. I mean, some of them look like Philip Lorca de Corsia pictures. And I just thought, wow, this is an interesting guy who didn't say wedding photography has to be shit, but he did say wedding photography is mostly shit. But actually, there's an interesting potential here. That's really fascinating, and you actually get people in photography like this all the time who actually want to do better than their context or their commercial criteria demand.
And so, but that inflection isn't necessarily enough for you to say that this is the art making practice. Like that's the switch.
The what making practice?
The art making practice. Like whether you're like a self-supporting, full-time, art-only producing person, or somebody who also makes art during, or somebody who makes art maybe accidentally, or what have you. You know, that there's, as you're saying, something interesting, and there's exceptions to the other stuff that isn't good and that isn't interesting, either in the present or into the future.
Well, Evans was interesting on this because when he was asked about it, I mean, this is a guy who, having stuck up his pictures in the right order at the Museum of Modern Art, then didn't attend his own opening at the Museum of Modern Art out of embarrassment. Just wasn't that. And when asked about all of this, he said, well, you know, I switch. I haven't pressed anything. When asked about it, he said, well, I'm more interested in photography as an art than in photography as art. And I think that's a distinction which completely perplexes people today. That something might be an art and not necessarily art. Or that its art might be in being an art rather than art. I mean, there are all kinds of kind of creative endeavours in all fields of life. And you'd have to describe them as being arts. You wouldn't have to describe them as being art, and that wouldn't necessarily matter, that strong claim. Could matter, could be